In the quiet town of Indiana in 1992, life moved at an ordinary pace. Neighborhoods were safe, children played in the streets, and the sense of community offered parents a comforting belief that their kids were protected. Among these children was 12-year-old Shanda Sharer, a bright and spirited young girl, known for her laughter, her energy, and the warmth she brought to friends and family. But beneath the surface of ordinary teenage life, darker emotions were brewing in a separate corner of the same community. A group of teenage girls, aged DCCs to DC, harbored intense feelings of jealousy over relationships, rivalries, and perceived slights. Among them were Melinda Loveless, Lori Tackett, and 2 other girls, whose envy and obsession with Shanda's social life grew into a dangerous fixation. Over time, this jealousy transformed into planning, secrecy, and ultimately, a horrifying plan that would irreversibly change the lives of everyone involved. On the night of January 10th, 1992, the 4 teenage girls lured Shanda out of her home under false pretenses. They pretended to be friendly, inviting her to spend time together, masking their true intent beneath smiles and reassurances. Once she was in their presence, their aggression emerged. Shanda, trusting her peers, had no idea of the danger that awaited her. The group then kidnapped her, forcing her into a vehicle and transporting her to a secluded home in the town. Over the course of the night, the group carried out a series of brutal actions that would shock anyone who learned of the events. Shanda was tortured, threatened, and physically harmed repeatedly, the attackers inflicting pain for hours while documenting, discussing, and escalating the violence. The methodical nature of the attack suggested careful premeditation, a disturbing combination of cruelty and control orchestrated by multiple perpetrators. The victim's fear, terror, and confusion must have been unimaginable. Trapped in a situation where the people she considered peers had turned into instruments of unimaginable pain, investigators would later uncover that the motive for this vicious act was primarily jealousy over a relationship. Shanda's perceived closeness to someone admired by the perpetrators had sparked envy so deep that it escalated to murderous intent. The group's actions reflected the psychological complexity of peer influence, adolescent rivalry, and extreme aggression, highlighting how social dynamics in teenage communities can sometimes spiral into lethal outcomes. By morning, Shanda Sharer's life had been tragically taken. The news of her kidnapping, torture, and murder sent shockwaves through the local community, and soon the story would capture national attention. Parents, teachers, and children alike were confronted with a stark reality. Sometimes, cruelty and jealousy do not wait for adulthood. They can manifest with devastating consequences among the young. Law enforcement faced the task of piecing together the night's events, interviewing witnesses, tracing movements, and collecting forensic evidence. The investigation revealed meticulous planning, coordinated actions, and the chilling lack of remorse displayed by the perpetrators. As police reconstructed the timeline, the case became an example of extreme adolescent violence rarely seen in the United States. Experts in criminal psychology were called in to examine the motives, behavior, and thought processes of the teenagers involved. They analyzed jealousy, peer pressure, and the influence of group dynamics on moral judgment, seeking to understand how seemingly normal adolescents could commit acts of such extreme cruelty. Media coverage of the Shanda Sharer case amplified its notoriety. News outlets highlighted the young ages of the perpetrators, the brutality of the crimes, and the unsettling psychological underpinnings. Across the country, parents and educators discussed how to recognize warning signs, how to intervene before jealousy and aggression escalated, and how communities could protect vulnerable children. By the end of the first phase of the investigation, the horrifying truth was undeniable. 4 teenage girls had deliberately kidnapped, tortured, and murdered a peer. The brutality, cruelty, and premeditation of the attack set it apart as one of the most extreme cases of adolescent violence in modern American history, leaving an indelible mark on Indiana, the nation, and the study of juvenile criminal behavior. With the evidence gathered, law enforcement moved to apprehend the 4 perpetrators. Their interviews, forensic evidence, and witness statements made it clear that this was not an impulsive act, but a premeditated crime executed with coordinated planning. Each of the teenage girls had played a specific role, from luring Shanda to restraining her, escalating the violence, and ensuring that the attack could not be interrupted. In the courtroom, prosecutors presented the harrowing details, how the group had kidnapped a defenseless inflicted hours of torture, and ultimately ended her life, all motivated by jealousy and adolescent obsession. Psychological assessments were central to the trial. Experts explained that adolescence can sometimes amplify intense emotions such as envy, anger, and rivalry. But in this case, these feelings manifested in extreme criminal behavior. The testimonies revealed disturbing insights into the perpetrator's thought processes, lack of empathy, and fascination with power over a peer. The media coverage surrounding the trial ensured that the nation watched closely as the case unfolded. Headlines emphasized the unprecedented cruelty of the crime, the young ages of those involved, and the shocking psychology that drove them to act. Public discourse centered on juvenile justice, questioning how society should respond to teenagers capable of such violence. Ultimately, the legal outcomes reflected the gravity of the crime. Sentences varied based on age, mental evaluations, and the degree of participation, but all were held accountable for their role in the murder. The case left a lasting impression on the study of group crimes, particularly among adolescents. Experts continue to reference the Shanda Sharer case as an example of how jealousy, peer influence, and calculated cruelty can converge to create one of the most horrific crimes committed by teenagers. Beyond the courtroom, the community of Indiana and the nation grappled with the implications of the case. Parents re-evaluated their awareness of children's social interactions. Schools implemented programs on conflict resolution, and psychologists studied the environmental and emotional factors contributing to violent behavior. Today, the story of Shanda Sharer is remembered not only for its tragic outcome, but also for the lessons it offers about adolescence, peer influence, and the capacity for cruelty in seemingly ordinary environments. It serves as a chilling reminder that extreme jealousy, when amplified by group dynamics and unchecked impulses, can lead to devastation. And for those who study the case, it underscores the importance of vigilance, early intervention, and understanding the complex factors that influence young minds. The legacy of this crime remains a somber reflection on human behavior, the fragility of trust, and the consequences of unchecked emotions among the young. Subscribe Criminal Verse, where every crime hides a story.